this morning. So welcome. Thanks for coming. Make sure you're near a neighbor today, because part of today there will be some dialogue, some discussion, some conversations that are going on. So make sure you find a neighbor. And this camera, he's going to try to follow me, and I'm going to be way here because you're all back here. So this is going to be like an extreme close-up version of video today. I have this picture up here. I always start with this picture when I have the chance to share. This is my son. It's a little while ago now. He's almost 5. He's a big boy now. But in this, he sat there and he truly thought he was a superhero. And I always like to put this up here because I think it's important for us as we go through today and we talk about how we're going to move and set that vision and mission to life and how it can then influence student learning in the classrooms. We all have that opportunity to be superheroes for kids each and every day, and we have to have that mindset. So like my son in this, where he's like, hey, I have superpowers. We do, because we have a chance to work with kids each and every day. So keep that in mind as we're having our dialogue today. So who's the guy from Iowa City? Okay, Gardner Elementary School. Bears fan, they're not doing so well. Hawkeyes fan, they're doing okay. But the Cubs are on tonight. I don't know if anyone else is excited about that, but I'm pretty enthusiastic. I've been trying to scout out. Last night I was trying to scout out the best location so I could find the best TV to sit in front of from about 8 until whenever that game gets done. So that's got to be in my plans for tonight. But I love this quote. This quote sits in my office. It was from a colleague of mine. She gave it to me, and it said, "Walk with the dreamers, the believers, the courageous, the cheerful, the planners, the doers, the successful people with their heads in the cloud and their feet on the ground." And as we talk today, we're going to talk a little bit about the dreams that we need to have for kids in our buildings, in our classrooms, in our district, whatever your role may be. Whether it's this is what I'm going to do to set that vision and mission for my classroom, or if I'm going to do it for my school, or if I'm going to do it for a district as a whole. We have to be able to dream a little bit, but at the same time, we have to have our feet on the ground and have a plan to make that happen. So a little info about Gardner Elementary School. It's in North Liberty, Iowa. It's part of the Iowa City School District. We've got about 620 kids. We actually gained some last week, so I think that's a bit off. I think we're going 623 now. 26 sections of K-6 and about 5 to 6% special education. As we're going to tell our story, I always think it's important if you're saying, hey, your brand's going to move your student achievement as well, or the work you're going to do when you set your vision and mission to life. 14% is an increase over our reading proficiency on Iowa assessment. We've had a 91% average as a school on our DRA, which is that diagnostic reading assessment. So last year at the end of the year, 91% of our kids were proficient. On our math screeners, we had 96% in the computation, 95% in applications. And then we send out a family survey every year. And in all categories that we surveyed out, we had above 96% satisfaction from our parents. So that tells you a little bit about when you tell your story and you tell it well, you can keep your parents feel informed and feel a part of what's going on in the school. And also when you set that mission and vision to life, which we'll talk about today, it can influence the work that your teachers do as well.
Well, I certainly know how to compliment a woman. If you'll excuse me.
Do you know who I am?
No, I can't say that I do.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Really?
People know me.
Well, I'm very happy for you.
I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
So, like Will Ferrell says, I'm kind of a big deal. I'm not talking about myself in this, but when you're thinking about your school, I want you to find your neighbor right now. Talk with your neighbor about what is it at your school that's kind of a big deal. Like, what are you known for? Like, when you go to the community, you go into town, and you talk about your school, what is it that you're positively known for in the community? Like, what is the initial thought of your families and community members? What's the kind of big deal thing for your school? So go ahead, find the neighbor, introduce yourself. There's going to be a lot of opportunities when we see this red question mark in the bottom that we're going to have dialogue, so make sure you have somebody to talk with a little bit.
Hi, I'm Tessa. Nice to meet you. This is one thing that I struggle
All right, fire a couple things at me. What are some things that you're known for? Just brag about your school a little bit. How is your school community kind of a big deal? What are some of the things? What are some of the things? I heard a few of you. You don't be shy now. Come on, throw some of the things out there. What? Because this is part of this. You have to. It's a funny thing. In education, we're oddly humble about stuff. But we need to be all brag about the great things that are going on in our school, so we're telling the story. Because if we're not, someone else is telling that story. And that's what we're going to talk about in this. You want to be the author of the story of your school. So what are the great things that are happening in your setting? What are you known for in your school community, and how can you build off that? So, in this room of like 20 people, we should be able to brag a little bit. So what are some of the things? Yeah.
Highly qualified staff.
Great.
Point of hiring the best.
Hiring the best. Great staff. You can highlight that all the time. I heard over here, I don't know, what's your name again, sir?
Justin Morton from Home Story. I said we're known for our strong sense of community.
Yeah, I heard that. That's why I brought it out. Strong community. That's a great thing when you're talking about this. Building that community. What are some other things? Someone over here. Yeah.
Ours was similar in that it's a very tight family that
Great.
we support each other.
Absolutely. All these things, we want to be able to tell that story. We want to know what we're positively known for. And the worry then is if you're actually talking about it and there's not anything for your school. Like you're like, I don't know. Or it's not clearly defined. That's what this is about. Making that defined. Making that say, this is what we're about, this is the story we're going to tell. Maybe. And we're not doing that. There we go. So, just a little thing. I love to, my shameless plug for Twitter followers today. There it is. There's our iTech Eye. We'll put that in there. If you hear anything today, please go ahead. This is about social media. We're going to talk about how social media can help tell your story. So use it while we're in here, okay? Put things out there. If you've got something great, put the hashtag with it. Have it out there all the time. We'll talk later on. Find us greatest best. That's the hashtag at Garner Elementary School. We're not being shy about ours. Okay? We're telling our story and we're saying, hey, this is what we're about. And I'll talk to you about what that process looked like over time. But there's our kind of shameless plug. Also, down at the bottom is my email address that'll come up later on. If there's any questions after you leave this, you're wondering like, hey, how can we make this happen within our school community? I'm happy to help. I'd love to connect with you and be a part of that. So today we're going to talk about a brand that can impact student achievement and also establish how a brand can positively impact the school community. Okay? What you're known for, what it is about, and how are we influencing what happens in the classroom. Because there's all sorts of places that have great hashtags, great brands, great things, but is it really having an impact in the rooms? Okay? Whether it's your own classroom, the classrooms in your school, or on a broader scope, the classrooms within your district. So, again, quick pre-assessment. How many schools in this room have a motto or slogan? Just a quick little, some sort of, you got a motto or a slogan? Like you should rattle it off. Not that mission, vision statement that's really long that no one remembers and no one knows what it is, but like a motto or a slogan. Like, hey, this is boom, and people know it. Okay? So, I saw a number of hands. Now, how many slogans, mottos, brands actually impact instruction or student learning? Okay, we got a couple raising hands. So, little red question mark again. Tell your story. Talk about, okay, this is our brand, or this is our motto, or this is what we're kind of about. And then talk about, well, how could this influence, or how could this impact student achievement? So find your partner again, share what your brand or your little mission vision is, and then could it impact student learning? Go. You can brand your classroom.
Every day, off my door when they leave. Have a great day. So obviously, I hope I have one like message in their ear.
So,
Ours is learning to walk on them. They're not going to do this part. It has to be part of your conversation. I hope I like when they're this question that I'm like that will bang in their ear. A lot of what we do when I was Okay. Yep. Right. Yep.
It's a funny thing in education. There's and I said this early on, we're almost too humble for our own good in a lot of cases. And there's a comparison to make between businesses and schools. I put some logos up here of some businesses that are out here. Whether you like their products or not, There's something about what they do. Now, I was watching football yesterday, and it seemed like every other commercial was talking about Domino's Pizza. And I don't even like Domino's Pizza, but it was on all the time. And if you look at their mission and vision, they're not sitting there and being humble about it. They want to be the finest or the best pizza delivery company in the world. That's what they're talking about. That's their mission. When they started trying to move that forward, they started saying, we want to be the best one that we can possibly be. Target, if you look at their stuff, it talks about they want to be the preferred shopping destination for basically everything. They want you to walk in those doors and leave with everything you need. That's their goal. They make that their standard. Nike's been branding themselves forever. I mean, my goodness, how often do we sit there and look at Nike stuff? We automatically know just do it. We've known what it's about. We know their whole brand, their whole image, and what they've tried to do at all times. Apple, I used to always joke that people are lined up right now for the iPhone 7, but now that that's getting old, it's probably people are lining up for the iPhone 8 already. Whenever they put something new out there, they've made it so you desire it before you even know it. It's like, oh, I need that. Mine's working fine, but for some reason I need this one. It says you can put water on it. Like you just start to, they have it where they've made their products so essential. If you're not familiar at all, how many of you are somewhat familiar with the Pike Place Fish Market stuff? If you are, if you're not, check it out. It's really great stuff. This is the fish market. It's most famously known for the ones that chuck the fish, right? A lot of people know that. Oh yeah. But part of their thing was, and their owner, their founder, at one point in time decided, he's like, you know what, we're gonna be world famous. And it wasn't like, they're just like, we're just gonna do that. And they started putting it on everything. And they started operating like that was the way they were going to do things. We're going to be world famous. So they put it on everything. You buy their tartar sauce, it's world famous. Their store is world famous. The way they throw fish is world famous. And it's kind of become that way. If you look it up on YouTube or find some of the different videos, you can see they have a whole philosophy that then has been used in education and business. And they decided that they were going to be famous. But in schools, it's interesting. In schools, we sit there and we want to be a little too humble sometimes. Or, well, I don't want to offend the neighboring school. Or I don't want to say, hey, we're striving for this level, but we don't want to brag about it too much. It's an odd thing. Businesses, they make their product really memorable. In school, our product is the education we provide for kids. We need to make that memorable for kids. We need to make it so we're telling that story at all times. And then they don't shy away from greatness. None of them sat there and said, Domino's, I hope we can come in shortly behind Papa John's and Pizza Hut. That's kind of our goal. If we could do that. Or Target's like, Walmart's a big deal, so if we could just be close. That's not their standard. That's not what they're selling themselves on. But yet in school, we're like, 80%, that should be okay. Or we'll talk about wanting to be great, but we don't want to offend someone down the road. But I think we have to be able to tell our story. We have to be able to brag about what we're doing in our schools because we're doing it for kids. And that's the most important thing. So here's our process. I'm going to take you through what it looked like at Gardner Elementary School as we built this brand. This is our kind of little statement. This is our motto. Every kid, every day deserves the finest, the greatest, the best. And then I showed you earlier our hashtags, finest, greatest, best. Every kid, every day deserves the finest, the greatest, the best. That's what we're about. We've got Eric here is one of our neighboring schools, and I don't think he's offended that we're talking about being the finest, greatest, and best when we're a mile away from one another. Okay, that's not our point. Every kid, every day deserves the finest, the greatest, the best. And here's our process. But I want you to think about this. I had to throw the Cubs in here. Of course, right? And the Cubs. You think about the Cubs, okay? Up until last year, they were bad. They really weren't very good. They'd sell out Wrigley Field, people would go there to drink beer, they made a bunch of money, but they didn't win games. And then all of a sudden, Joe Madden actually started doing things. If you paid attention at all to the Cubs media, kind of online social media presence last year, they started putting in the hashtag, we are good. And I truly believe it was more about not necessarily telling that to everyone else, it was telling that to themselves. A lot of times we need to change what that culture is in your school. I bet you can think right now in your own setting where you have some teachers that maybe don't have the best kids first mentality at times. And you might need to shift that culture a little bit or change some people's perception. As the Cubs were doing this, they had to change from, hey, we're the lovable losers that we sell out the bleachers and everyone's happy to, no, we're legitimately a good team. And they needed to change that mindset. They needed to change what it was going to be about. When you put this brand in action, when we talk about every kid every day deserving the finest, the greatest, the best, that starts to shift how we think about things and how our conversations go.
longest pause for Toledo right there before he delivered the pitch. And even Bill Murray saying, let's go. The quick pitch. And Pius sends it deep to left. Pagani's there at the wall and it's in the basket.
I just had to put it in. I mean, it really has nothing to do with other than the fact that it was a Cubs video and, it was exciting. I was really, he's really lucky that made it into the basket because he flipped that thing like he hit it out of the whole stadium and next thing you know, it's like barely lands in the basket. He's lucky that's there. But otherwise, but I was pretty excited about Monday night when that happened. So here's our process. We're going to go through all these steps. Okay, it's a little process and then we'll talk about what goes in the middle later on. We're going to start at paint a picture and work our way around. And this is in the slides and stuff, or otherwise I'll have them at the top of each slide as we go through it. Bob Ross. You gotta love little Bob Ross. Paint a picture in your mind. This needs to be our first step. And I love this quote from Ewell Stanley Anderson. When you paint success pictures in your mind, you initiate an inner process whereby your attitudes, hopes, aspirations, and enthusiasm are elevated in response to an image of a more promising future. Every person who aspires must first sell themselves hope, the promise of a better life. We have to paint this picture in our mind. When we think about our schools, or our classrooms, or our school district, whatever it may be, whatever your sphere of influence is, what is that perfect painting in your mind? As we started this process, we had to ask ourselves, if we wanted Garner Elementary to be that unbelievable school, what did that look like? What was that painting we needed? What was the picture we needed in our mind to make that happen? What is that painting? So, red question at the bottom, turn to your neighbor and tell them, from whether it's your classroom, your school, or your district, what would be that perfect painting for your school? What would be that perfect painting? Okay, go ahead and talk.
Gary. I used to hand it out, and then I got flack for coming to tech conferences and giving out paper, so I don't feel like that too. But it's in there. So at Garner, we started talking a little bit, and this was a question we posed to our leadership team. What does that perfect painting look like? What is that most beautiful painting of what our school was going to be? It was a great dialogue, and it wasn't a conversation about, well, we can't do that because. It was simply, what is that perfect painting? We didn't get into the dialogue of what couldn't happen or why that wouldn't look the way it was. It became a conversation just simply, this is what we want our school to be, and how are we going to get it there? Or this is how we want our classroom to be. You could ask that to kids. Or this is how we want our district to look, and have that conversation. What is that perfect painting? And then from there, we had to define what it looked like.
what does this mean? How is it going to happen? You know, when we started talking about at Garner, one of our things we wanted, I showed you early on, we were 91% or whatever proficient reading. That's not bad. That's pretty good. But our whole conversation became, well, what about the other 9%? So all of our goals are based off 100%, because that's the standard to which we want to work off of. That was part of our perfect painting. How can we get every kid who walks through our door, all 623 of them, to get to the standards that we want them at? How can we make that happen? What else does it look like in our story? What does this look like for each and every kid? Which is why we started talking about every kid every day deserves the finest, the greatest, best. It's not almost every kid, or almost every day, because every kid every day deserves the finest, greatest, best. So we had to define what that looks like. So when you're thinking about your painting, your picture, how are you going to do that? What are those action steps to get there? Not the questions that are going to get in the way, but what can make that happen? So you have to be able to define that action. And then you have to create a motto or slogan. If you have one now, can you build off of it? If you don't, can you make it? Ours started with the idea of we wanted our school to be the finest, greatest, and best. That's how it started. We talked about our school being the finest, the greatest, the best. And then we realized over time that wasn't exactly what we were shooting for, because we weren't talking about the kids. So we had to refine it a little bit. And that's where we added in the every kid every day deserves the finest, greatest, and best. And an important part in this, and I put it down at the bottom, if you're a leader in this building, or if you're working on this as a leadership team, this better align with what you want to do as the leader of that school. If you're going to come up with this motto that you're going to then promote, it better align with what you believe, because that's an important piece in this. So you need to have your motto and slogan. So this is where ours came to. And then, I'll pause that for a second. We wanted, and I talked to you for a little bit, I said we needed to get the kids involved in this. We need the kids to be a part of our statement. So every morning we do this little Garner chant that I'll show you here that talks about how our kids even know our every kid every day deserves the finest, greatest, best. Even our kindergartners can recite this thing, which is fun. Two things. The kid in the orange cracks me up every time. I don't know if you noticed him up front. He's off by about 2 seconds, and it makes me laugh every time. But when we were a part of this, we needed the kids to know. As we start to make these things, if you have the greatest vision and mission and you know it, great. Or maybe your leadership team knows it, great. And then your teachers know it, but we want our kids to know it. So every morning that happens. Now this is a former music teacher, now is in the classroom, so her group really gets into it. I mean, they have fun with it. And I think they really put on a show when they knew that I was coming to video. Like, that was one take, by the way. One take, boom, they did it well. And Kid in the Orange is way off, but it was so much fun. But in the morning, every morning, at the start of the year, we get together, we do an assembly. It is the loudest hot mess of an assembly. We get all 600 and some kids in there. We start with our 6th graders. They go through the chant, and we add 5th, we add 4th, we add 3rd, 2nd, 1st, kindergarten, until we have 620 kids yelling, and I'm on a microphone trying to scream over the top of them as we're doing this chant, and finishing with the finest, greatest, best. Because we want to sell that mission within our school, and make them know that's what we're about each and every day. So it's just a fun little video there for us. Oh, now we're stuck again. I'm trying to right click. There we go. This, I think, if you take anything away from today, because a lot of times I saw a lot of you have a motto or a slogan or whatever. This step, I think, is the most critical piece in this entire process, is this idea of making promises. Some people refer to them as collective commitments. Whatever it is. You have to then agree as a staff of how you're going to make your mission and vision, your brand happen. So when we said every kid every day deserves the finest, the greatest, the best, we had to then decide, well, what does that mean for us as the educators and the people in the building? It wouldn't do any good if I made this list. It wouldn't do anything. We went through this whole consensus building protocol where we started with huge pieces of butcher paper and we started writing down, well, what does it mean for every kid every day to deserve the finest, greatest, and best? And we started writing down all the ideas of what that was. And we started eliminating ideas. And we started starring ideas. And we started marking things and saying, this one's great. This needs rewording. This gets there. And we kept revising, and boiled it down to these. And we came to these promises. And these promises have become critical. And it's critical in a variety of ways. One, we've agreed to this. It was created by the staff. Everyone there had a hand in these. So they couldn't argue with them. And two, it becomes great conversation starters in our work. Because we've all had that moment where you've had that kid that has pushed a teacher to their last straw, and then you can turn and ask, are you going to give that kid a fresh start tomorrow, like we promised we would? So these promises were created by our staff. Give you a fresh start each day, encourage your boys, hold you accountable for good character, learn every day, inspire you to do your best, and believe in our students more than they believe in themselves. That was the promises our staff came up with and said. You can have a mission and vision, you can have an awesome brand, you can have the greatest social media presence ever, but these are what then starts to move it into influencing the work in the classrooms. Or if you're in a classroom and you come up with these promises with your kids, think about that in regards to your classroom management or whatever it might be. Or as a district, if you start having those conversations about what are we going to do on a daily basis for kids. You have to make those promises. Turn to a neighbor. Talk about this idea of promises, like what would that look like with your brand or with your slogan? And then also, if you don't have one right now, just talk about one of these that's up there. You're like, oh, that one rings a bell for me, or that one sounds good for our setting, whatever it might be. So talk about this idea of promises and the impact that they could have. Okay? Go ahead. So here's the thing about our promises. Again, as we started telling our story and we started talking about what we wanted our school to become, these promises can't just be known by our teachers. We have these things posted in every classroom all over. They sit right next to where parents sign in. This is a part of everything that we do. At Kindergarten Roundup, we talk about our promises. We talk about what it means for every kid every day to deserve the finest, the greatest, and best. We put those promises out there each and every time. They sit in everyone's classroom. You have to make them public. They have to be public. And in such a degree, we actually added a layer this year that I got the opportunity to share this same presentation out at the national conference. And from that, someone had showed with me this Because I Said I Would videos, which are some great videos. And we showed that as the next layer of looking at our promises. And we started to make our own promises. This is on our main bulletin board in our front hallway. Every person in the building started putting there. Our custodians got one up there that says he promises to, and it's a personal commitment he made this year to help us achieve our goal of every kid every day deserves the finest, the greatest, and best. It's making that so public and putting it out there, putting your own commitments out there. Mine sits right below that I up there. I had my 3 words, enjoy the moment. Okay, that was my promise, to enjoy the moment at school, not let the busyness get in the way, but enjoy that moment. We had all wide ranges in there, from, hey, I'm going to have fun in my classroom this year, to I'm going to integrate some new tech, or I'm just going to introduce you to some great books. They made those promises again, putting those out there, What are those commitments going to be? Because we've all been there. I think we've all had those moments where we've defined that mission and vision, and then it's just that nice statement that sits on the shelf. You've got to make that statement have action. You have to have a way to get back to that statement at all times. How can you always come back around to it? And in this case, make them very public. Our parents, our kids see this all the time. Our kids love running up there and looking at the one, finding their teachers. What did my teacher promise? It's fun. So you need to promote like crazy. Like I said, we put these everywhere. There it is. There's our front office desk, and there's our promises sitting right there. Just sitting right there for everyone to see. We promote some more. This was how we did use this. Before we replaced the promises up there, we had our staff composite in the middle, and we had pictures of our kids doing awesome stuff during the day. Every kid, every day. Those constant reminders. We put it on swag. You got to promote like crazy. Our finest, greatest, best stuff is on everything. We got it on water bottles. We've got it on pins. We've got it on sweatshirts. We put it everywhere. We put it out there because then you start actually getting families and people involved in what it's going to be. We put it on the walls. This is our kindergarten wall. It's the finest, greatest, best wall. When kids met their little SMART goals, because we had SMART goals and individual SMART goals for every kid in kindergarten, all 123 of them last year, 123 kindergartners got their picture on this wall with a little sign that said, I got my giant gator goal. You know, they had a giant gator goal. The kids knew what it meant to be every kid, every day, the finest, greatest, best. We put it on the walls. That's that thing on the top is as you walk into our office. Buford Gardner Elementary, every kid, every day deserves the finest, greatest, best. Put it everywhere. Put it out there. This is the doorways into our hallways. You can find, these are just stickers. You know, finding different ways to put it everywhere we can. It's a little magnet that served as a reminder for us as we came back around to it. We started talking about if every kid every day deserves the finest, the greatest, the best. Well, how high does our bar need to be? That was a theme we had a year ago. And we got these magnets that sat above everyone's doorway. They're still there now as they leave their classrooms. I was kind of thinking like the Notre Dame thing, you know, where you slap the sign. You know, it just sits there. They have to walk under it. Teachers have to walk under that each and every day as they go in and out of their classroom. How high is your bar? Finest, greatest, best. They're all over the school. They're nothing big. They're about the size of an index card. But there they sit as a little reminder at all times. Making that come to action. So as we started to put it on everything, then our kids started to know about it even more. The top, that little drawing up there, that's my driveway. My daughter, unprompted, wrote that in our driveway as a second grader last year. She knew what the hashtag was as a second grader and put it in our driveway. Just putting that message out there. This little girl on the left, her mom loves to make shirts. I need to get some royalties from her, I think. But she puts on, that was their first day of school shirt, the gator with finest, greatest, and best, where they have the little headbands. The kids and parents start to promote it and be after it too. A lot of people, here, see, our kids again. We had a little kind of outdoor day, and they decorated our playground and put that on there. These girls sat there and colored that in. Our mission and vision had taken action, and our kids even know what it's about. Our PTO, our families, our PTO had this sign made for us. This is a sign that hangs in our main hallway. Finest, greatest, best. Gardner Elementary, proud to be a Gardner Gator. They had this made because they wanted that mission and vision to be out there. So it sits in our main hallway, this beautiful sign that was made by a local artist. Putting that mission out there. It wasn't prompted by us. I didn't say, hey, I really want our mission and vision on a sign. They went and liked it and made this happen. And I always think how many people can say that their mission and vision is made in a fortune cookie? I really think that's like a really bookmark of you've gotten it out there. It made it into a fortune cookie. You know, there's a lot of people who have done branding stuff. Ours is made into a fortune cookie. Every kid, every day deserves the finest, the greatest, and best. This was our parent-teacher conference meal. You know, we had the full day conferences, and a mom made fortune cookies and put that inside. Very talented mom, by the way, but how cool is that? That was fun to open up and you see that inside. So all of you need to get fortune cookies made with your mission and vision inside. You know, all this is the different branding stuff, and I talked to you early on. You know, That mom wouldn't have put it inside a fortune cookie if we didn't put our message out there at all times. How we're using social media to help us along the way. You know, through our Facebook page, our Twitter accounts, our Instagram account. We let our kids post the Instagram account. Always using the hashtag, finest, greatest, best. Putting that all out there. Having the hashtag, putting it in everything we do, so that way whatever's posted, that statement's out there. I love putting it even in your signature line. This is always a quick little thing. You know, if you put that at the end of your thing, what's your promise? As a principal, I think it's pretty strong to have that down at the bottom of your signature line. Every kid every day deserves the finest, the greatest, the best. So talk again to your neighbor. I've talked for quite a bit here, a little bit. Talk about how your branding's going at your school. What's your social media presence? How do you get your motto out there? And if you're not doing that now, what might be some good first steps? Okay? How do you get your story told? Or what might be some good first steps? Go ahead and talk.
I know people that there's a website at our school. And to make her aware of it. Right, she runs the class, and so they. Right. And so that talks to the student, when I, they have check out your high school, and find out if one of your schools. Not like,
Really start with that.
I think so.
But even beyond that, you can look at it in different ways. And you could apply this and just change your life. If it aligns to what you want to accomplish, there's nothing against it. You know, it's not like we're trying to say, now we want that. We're not trying to say, we're going to find your we're saying that's what we want for our kids. And we want for our kids. Actually, they let me share this with all of our principals. Here's the process we go. What they share with your principals. A mix. I think some are more comfortable with this. Other people don't let their own associate the right way. So just depends on No, and because of that, and that's why those promises are so important. Because then that becomes a commitment to making it happen. I can't, and that's the part I can't stress enough. That's been huge for us.
I like that.
And that's learning.
All right. So when you've told your story, again, we still haven't started making it, you know, telling your story, putting it out there, putting everything great. I mean, we flood social media with pictures and stuff. We just put it every day. We try to get stuff out there. This is the way we're doing it. But that doesn't impact real work. That just tells families, that tells people the story, and they know what you're talking about. Having it impact the real work. I said there was, you know, I talked about our promises, and I was just in a side conversation here about the importance of those. Those can become dialogue starters for your teachers as they're sitting in PLCs. I will always remember. It will be one of my, I think, finest memories of the school. Was sitting there, we're in a PLC one day, and someone was really upset about how a kid was acting. And one of their colleagues turned to them and said, "Are you going to give them a fresh start tomorrow?" And that was when it was like, yep, the work we're doing is having an impact. Because it wasn't me having to say that. as the principal of the school, it was one of their colleagues who said, hey, you're going to give that kid a fresh start tomorrow. And when you start having these things impact the work, when you've created a standard, when your standard has become that every kid every day deserves the finest, greatest, best, there's not a lot of room for other stuff. There's not a lot of room for the small details. You know, one of our things that we like to talk about, we don't say it out loud because it sounds kind of bad, make average feel awkward. When we talk about every kid every day deserving the finest, the greatest, the best, or when you've painted that picture for your school, for your classroom, for your district, I don't think there's a lot of room for average. I don't think when you're talking about your ideal school, you know, we'll be all right with some mediocre results. We hope to be okay. I mean, I don't think that's part of your mission and vision or what you hope to accomplish. So you want to set a stage and set a standard that makes what has always been done feel a little awkward. What's always been a part of it feel like, that's not quite what I was hoping for. And that's okay. You want teachers to see the greatness that's going on around them and see that sometimes maybe what's always been done, or turning to that next page in the Basel Reader, or turning to that next page in the math textbook because, well, that's the next unit no matter what the kid did or didn't do. Good. We want that to feel a little uncomfortable. Keep the focus. Missions and visions die if you don't keep the focus. You have to have ways to come around to it over and over. You have to have ways to sit there and connect teachers to it at all times. We have these little green cups. They're not anything fancy. They're a green plastic cup. They sit in everyone's room. Inside those green plastic cups, we use those to put reflections of how we're doing in meeting our promises. So different points in time during the year, I'll tell everyone, bring your green cup today as we get together professional learning, and we'll start with a reflective question. Which promise are you doing really well at? Which one do you need to work on? Or what is a goal you have for a kid in your classroom? Or what is something that you know you want to do better this year? Or what's something that you want to accomplish as a goal? And then we have them put that green cup somewhere in the room where they can see it. And in the bottom of it, there it is. There sits a reminder. I told you earlier about the magnets as they walk out the doors. Constantly there. What's going to be there to remind teachers all the time? We're running short on time, so I won't click on our video there, but that had another video towards the bottom. You need to celebrate success. I talked about our survey early on. We celebrate with cake because we had changed the way people felt as they walked in our office. It went from 80-some% with feeling welcome to 99%. It was a huge change. Every kid, every day, we have these little promise cards that you can send out you can just give to kids, to parents, to teachers. You just fill them out. Write a little message. When you see someone meeting this, every kid, every day deserves the finest, greatest, best. Tell them how. Write a little message. Keep that conversation going. This is an email from our cook. She works in our lunchroom, and she even talks about the Garner Gators, the finest, the greatest, the best. I mean, how cool is that? You know, that our message was even into the cafeteria. Last year over spring break, we had our little bracelets made. The kids helped us design them. And I gave one to every staff member with a note about how they were meeting this. Every kid, every day deserves the finest, greatest, the best. How they were making that happen and how I appreciated that in the school. And then we celebrate with fireworks too. You guys see this. I don't know if we should put this on video because this may not have been legal. Reminding people what are your mission and visions about. Reminding people the great work they do on a daily basis. So all of this is important, but I need to get to the thing. So here's our pattern. The big thing is in the center. If you notice, there's arrows pointing everywhere to the middle. And in the middle, we talk about we have to believe that all kids can learn at high levels. Whatever your mission and vision you come up with, this must be the cornerstone of that work, that every kid that walks through the halls in your building or in your classroom or in your school district can learn at high levels. You have to believe that. And everyone in your organization has to believe that. And what you put together as your brand must be a conversation about those things. So, every kid every day deserves the finest, the greatest, and the best. You can steal it if you want, but if nothing else, just keep that in mind, because I think that's a good statement for all kids in whatever school district, wherever you're at, in the town or outside of the state. Every kid every day deserves the finest, the greatest, and the best from each and every one of us. So I think we're out of time for questions here. If you want to catch me after we're done, you certainly can. I'll also put a shameless plug in. If you have your instructional coach or your whatever it might be, some of your teacher leadership here today, the instructional design strategists from our building at Garner and myself are doing a session later on about how you can move innovation and technology into the classroom through the role of a principal and an instructional leader in your building. So it's kind of a fun little take on how to make that happen. So if you're interested in that at all, I'll put my shameless plug, same room, 120. Happy to see all you guys. Thank you so much for coming. And like I said before, if you want to reach out to me, feel free. I'd love to continue the conversation.